What can you do to make a word problem easier to understand? For example, Mrs. Dawson has 8 blue marbles and 6 green marbles in a bag. She puts in 7 more marbles. How many marbles are in the bag now? In this lesson, you will learn how to rewrite the question in a word problem by creating a fill-in-the-blank sentence. Let's review what you already know about word problems. You already know that in a word problem, there is information that tells us what's going on in the problem. You also know that there's a question that we have to figure out the answer to. Let's look at our word problem again. The information part tells us what we need to know to solve the problem. This is important because it tells you who's in the problem, what the problem's about, and how many things we should be thinking about. The question part tells us what we're trying to figure out. A common misunderstanding that you might have is that all you have to do is read the problem one time, and you will perfectly understand what's going on. This is not always true. Great mathematicians read the word problem many times to make sure they understand what's really happening. An even better way to understand the problem is to make a movie in your head so you can see what's happening as you read it. When I was reading the problem about Mrs. Dawson and the marbles, I imagined a lady holding a bag, and I could see lots of different colored marbles on the inside of the bag. So, how can I use the question to make the problem easier to understand? Well, turning a question into a fill-in-the-blank sentence really makes it easier to understand what we're trying to figure out. A fill-in-the-blank sentence is just a sentence that has a blank instead of a word or number. For example, let's look at this girl and her dogs. This girl has blank dogs. Can you use the information from the picture to tell me how many dogs she has? This girl has 3 dogs. Now let's turn a question into a fill-in-the-blank sentence. Think about your favorite flavor of ice cream. The question is, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream? You might say, my favorite flavor of ice cream is chocolate. But remember, we're trying to make a fill-in-the-blank sentence. Put a blank space instead of saying your favorite flavor. My favorite flavor of ice cream is blank. You just made a fill-in-the-blank sentence. Let's think about a word problem now. Remember, as a good mathematician, you should be making a movie in your head as we read this next problem. Try to imagine exactly what's going on. Mark has 3 songs on his iPod. He downloaded 2 more songs. How many songs does Mark have on his iPod now? Let's make sure we understand what we're trying to figure out by turning this question into a fill-in-the-blank sentence. So if I asked you, how many songs does Mark have on his iPod now, how would you answer me? You might want to start with who we're talking about, which is Mark. Since we don't know the answer yet, I want you to try to leave a space where the answer should go. Mark has blank songs on his iPod now. We're ready to solve our problem. We have our fill-in-the-blank sentence. And I know that now we should go back and look at our information. Okay, I see that he has 3 songs and he got 2 more songs. So I can figure out how many songs he has now by adding 3 plus 2, and that gives me 5. So let's take our answer and put it in the sentence we've already made. Mark has 5 songs on his iPod now. Does this make sense? I think it makes sense because if you had 3 songs and you got 2 more, you would have 5 songs altogether. Okay, let's go back and look at our first word problem. The question is, How many marbles are in the bag now? Let's turn this into a fill in the blank sentence so we know exactly what we're trying to figure out. There are blank marbles in the bag now. So now I know that when we're done solving the problem, we're going to know exactly how many marbles Mrs. Dawson has in her bag. In this lesson, you have learned how to rewrite the question in a word problem by creating a fill in the blank sentence.